What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Akalon here, and of course, welcome back to each and every one of you. Today, we're looking into spoilers. That's right, lots of spoilers. So, if you don't want spoilers, if you want to go into Dragonflight unspoiled, click away now. Are you gone? Great, I'm assuming that everyone is here right now, wants spoilers and they want speculation, because that is what you're getting. It's been weird with the alpha so far. We've not had any sort of direct quest spoilers. We've not had the whole, you remember those Wowhead posts where they'll literally give you the dialogue from every single quest in a quest chain that effectively spoils the whole story. We've had none of those. We've had synopses of storylines with keeping most of the spoilers. And I do apologize. There's literally a guy working just outside my window. Seems like he was trying to be as loud as humanly possible, so I do apologize for that. It is daytime, so a lot of people are working and doing their own shit. So yeah, just bear with me here. We're going to go into all of that. We're going to be discussing it at length, so I really hope that you guys will enjoy this speculation. As always, the deal is simple. If by the end of this video you are convinced of my speculation, you hit the like button. If not, dislike button. If you've already hit the like button, fucking love you, bro. Hit the like button. You'll be cool. You can be cooler if you join us over on Twitch or become a patron or a YouTube member. But hey, the like button is just fine. Let's get into it. So first thing we have to talk about is the moons. You'll see them on your screen right now. These moons have been data mined. Now, the moons are literally connected 100% to Elune. There's also a fairy tale of the moons in Folks and Fairy Tales, the World of Warcraft novel, where they speak about what happened to the moon and the sun and Anshe and Musha, the whole story behind that, and then, of course, the blue child as well. So these moons are almost always related to Elune, and whenever the moons are mentioned, Elune isn't far behind. Now, Elune is an interesting character in World of Warcraft, and that's sort of where I want to start with this. Up until Legion, Elune really only featured in World of Warcraft as a sort of side character, a character behind the scenes, a character that I like to call the Invisible Hand. Invisible Hand characters are incredibly useful because you can get away with things from Invisible Hand characters that it would be more difficult to do so if the character was front and center. So I kind of liked the idea of Elune being a secretive character. In Legion, we saw Elune for the first time interject herself and directly interfere with the game world. And I mean directly by literally raising Ysera up and putting her inside Ardenweald. The question could be asked, why did she not do this for the Night Elves that she saved the Teldrassil? But that's a story for another day. And then, of course, in Shadowlands, we heard Elune's voice for the very first time. So Blizzard is sort of walking a very fine line here. Is Elune going to become a more front and center character? Or is this all we're going to get? Bits and pieces every once in a while of Elune's story unfolding, but Elune herself remaining very much in the background. I think most of us can agree that the Elune storyline in Shadowlands wasn't that great. For a lot of us, we were expecting a lot more from a character that is this iconic and this sort of old guard-esque kind of character. So I really hope that Blizzard takes a lot more care in Dragonflight in dealing with the Elune story. But it all goes much deeper. So before we can even get to the speculation, let's just talk about what we know so far within the Shadowlands. So after the Shadowlands going into Dragonflight, we know that the Dragonflights are trying to re-establish their power connections, right? This includes the Green Dragons. We know that Ysera is, as it stands, trapped inside Ardenweald. But we are told at the end of Shadowlands with the Tyrande questline that Ysera can be born again. Ysera tells Tyrande to give this tear to her daughter, that her daughter would know what to do with this new tier of Elune. Now, this is where the first bit of speculation starts. This new tier of Elune isn't a normal tier of Elune. The new tier of Elune is hypercharged. Why do I say that? Well, first, this tier was created by Elune, much like the previous tiers, so it would have the power of Elune. That's, of course, if we assume that the entire power of Elune wasn't drained in order to restart the Heart of the Forest, which I doubt it was, so there would still be power left of Elune inside that tier. But now that tier is hypercharged by the souls of thousands of Night Elves. This was the gift of the Winter Queen. But it does come with a warning. In order to bring Ysera back from the Shadowlands into the world of the living, we're told that it will require a great sacrifice. What sacrifice could that be? What could that literally mean for the story? Well, here we have to get into a little bit of necromantic talk. We know that necromancy exists, and necromancy rarely requires any sacrifice, at least in World of Warcraft. In terms of general fantasy lore, necromancy tends to feed off of the soul of the user. It is forbidden magic in most fantasy universes, but in World of Warcraft, necromancy is maybe frowned upon, but tolerated for the most part. Necromancy is not the same as what we're talking about here, because we already know that through necromancy, the process is very different. Necromancy forcibly removes a soul from the Shadowlands, rips it through all of the veils, and ties it, anchors it back to the physical body. What happens to Ysera, or what we're going to do with Ysera, is a willing transfer. So this is where the Shadowlands gives up their claim on the soul, and the soul is capable of traveling back into our world. How do I know that this is what's going to happen? Because with necromancy, there are inherent risks. We know that with necromancy, souls do not always return as they are supposed to return. So sometimes souls can come back full-fledged themselves as they used to be in life. Other times, very little of the origin person remains. Sometimes anger and hatred could be the only emotions that remain. So it really is a gamble, because the process is violent. What you end up with may not be the being that you thought you were summoning back. So necromancy is messy business, and it's not an exact science. Would they take that chance with something like Ysera? The answer is no. Ysera is a green dragon. She is the aspect of the green dragonflight. The last thing you need is a sort of not quite Ysera level personality making their way back and becoming the new aspect of the green dragonflight, which could cause a lot of problems. But what about this great sacrifice? Why is the warning that it would require a great sacrifice? Now, there are a number of ways in which these sacrifices can indeed happen. The first, and perhaps the most obvious sacrifice, would be that the elves and their souls, the souls that currently reside within this tier, would have to give their own lives as a result of this transfer of power, this bringing Ysera back from Ardenweald, from the Shadowlands. That is the first one, right? And when I say sacrifice themselves, I mean cease to exist. So they're not going to become wisps. They're not going to go back into the Shadowlands. Their souls will be forfeit. It will basically be burnt as fuel in order to make the transfer happen. This is one scenario, but I don't think that counts as a quote-unquote great sacrifice, at least not in any real manner. Instead, and this is purely speculation, so I could be completely wrong, the Void tells us that the light struck a bargain with the enemy of all. Now, the only place this could be true is in the resurrection of Kalia Menethil. Kalia Menethil was brought back by the light. We know that Kalia was brought back not using necromancy. So necromancy wasn't involved in the bringing back of Kalia Menethil, most likely because it's too risky. The light needed a champion and one that they could trust. Bringing her back through necromancy, you can't be sure that you're actually going to end up with Kalia Menethil. So the light already made that sacrifice. building on that and sort of pulling from that, the Void warning us that the light struck a bargain with the enemy of all. Here's what I think happens if you want this willing exchange. Souls is a currency in the Shadowlands. Every soul is anima. Anima is power, and anima, the power from anima, is what the Shadowlands runs on. So I believe in order to make a trade, so in order to sort of coax the Shadowlands into giving up their claim on a soul, you have to replace the equivalency in power of the soul that you're trying to pull out. So if you're trying to pull out a peasant, you may just sacrifice another peasant and you will get that soul. But if you're trying to sacrifice or trying to bring back an aspect, you're going to need a lot of souls in order to do this. Where would those souls come from? Well, if it is indeed a great sacrifice, those souls would come from the green dragons themselves. So the green dragonflight will have to sacrifice themselves in order to bring Ysera back. How many green dragons, you ask? Maybe you didn't ask, but I'm going to assume you asked because that's what I want to talk about. Almost all of them. You see, the aspect of the green dragonflight, or the aspect of the dragonflight, really is the culmination of all of the power that the dragonflight possess. So if you have the green dragons, the way I would explain this, and again, very much speculation, but it makes sense. So dragonflights derive their power from the aspect. But in turn, the aspect derives its power from the flight. So with every dragon that is in the flight, the aspect gets more and more powerful. So it is sort of a give and take. As the aspect gets more powerful, the flight gets more powerful. As the flight gets more powerful, the aspect gets more powerful. So it really is a symbiotic relationship. If you want to bring back the aspect of the green dragonflight, you will most likely have to sacrifice a massive portion of the green dragonflight in order to do so. Would Ysera be willing to do this? Maybe not, but this might be why Ysera said, "Give this to my daughter." In other words, let them decide how important it is for me to come back. If they believe that they need me back, and that without me they cannot continue, they will make that sacrifice willingly. I will not interfere. I will not make any demands, and I will not make any suggestions. It is up to them, right? So this might be the sort of the route that Tyrande or Ysera is willing to take with this. Now let's cast the minds very quickly to the tier, because I do want to touch on that ever so briefly. I believe that the tier will be used to re-establish a world tree, or perhaps establish a new world tree. I believe that this is the first part of bringing Ysera back. The world trees connect to the dream. The dream connects to Ardenweald. We know this because the Nathrezim told us so. There is a back door into the Shadowlands, into Ardenweald specifically, built into the Emerald Dream. This would make sense. Elune is the sister of the Winter Queen. Elune helped build the dream. So it would make sense that she would have this back door into Ardenweald, into her sister's realm. If Ysera is to come back, the connection between Azeroth and the Dream needs to be re-established. With Teldrassil destroyed, that connection would be tenuous at best, and very, very weak. The question is, where? Where do we build a new world tree? Well, two possible positions come to mind. Position 1 is re-establishing Teldrassil as a world tree. It is destroyed currently, although we do not know exactly to what extent it's been destroyed. The other, and perhaps far cooler if Blizzard could pull this off, is to rebuild this world tree on the Dragon Isles itself, literally in the spot demarked for the green dragonflight. Why? Because that will give Blizzard the opportunity to allow the players, for the first time ever, to build their own capital. And it would work in such a symbiotic way. Green dragons are the dragons of the dream. They spend most of their lives asleep. I would say waking lives, but they're not awake very often. They spend their time asleep, delving and dwelling inside the dream, keeping the dream perfect. And they only awake when it is absolutely necessary and the situation is dire enough for them to actually do so. Otherwise, they remain asleep. Their job is to keep the dream pure and in some ways fight the nightmare within it. Being asleep means that they are, for the most part, unguarded. The Night Elves have served as friend and ally to Ysera for a really long time. So it would almost be poetic if the Night Elves make their new home on the Dragon Isles, guarding the green dragons as they sleep, as they protect the dream of Azeroth and Elune. It would be just so poetic, so awesome. So I really think that could be very, very cool. There's a lot of things in this post that also hint to some really cool stuff. For those of you that might be interested. So there's 2 new weapons that's been data mined. Both of these weapons seems to be called something Ysera. There's a new Ysera NPC that we know is there in the game files, but there's no model for this NPC yet. So at least to some extent, there is enough in the game that confirms that Ysera will make her return. The moons, of course, seems to be tied to either some kind of quest or some kind of achievement or some kind of scenario, but the moons are definitely much higher fidelity, much more HD, and it seems to suggest that it's going to be part of some skybox, depending or based on the file names of these moons. They appear to be some level of skybox. Now, I don't know exactly what it goes into this story, and obviously we'll only know once the game really goes live. But from my part, if Blizzard can pull off the Elune story without destroying her as an invisible hand character, so again, keep Elune as a very sort of minor character in the story. So Elune is there and she is sort of pushing the story forward a little bit, but she's not front and center. She doesn't come out again and she doesn't start speaking again. This would be amazing because it would be the perfect way to utilize her in the story without sort of destroying the mystique that exists behind Elune. But that's just my opinion. You will have your own, and I hope that you will let me know in the comment section down below what that opinion is, because I love reading what you guys have to say. Whether you agree or disagree doesn't really matter. I just love hearing your opinions on things. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember to hit the like button if you loved or enjoyed this speculation. Hit the dislike button if you didn't or if you didn't agree with it. Also, remember you can join us over on Twitch, YouTube memberships, or Patreon for exclusive behind-the-scenes streams as well as podcasts every single week. As always, be kind to each other, be good to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace out, fam.